The Iberian Peninsula is home to the widest and most complete range of reptiles in Europe. Its location in the south of the European continent is ideal, with long sunny days and a mild Mediterranean climate. These factors provide the perfect habitat for the species that live here. Reptiles, like all members of the animal kingdom, suffer directly and indirectly from the consequences of human actions. To counter this, great efforts are being made to alleviate some of the negative impact they've endured. This is a conservation area which is home to up to 13 species of snake, along with about 20 varieties of large and small lizard. Crickets, grasshoppers, and any other type of large invertebrate are the preferred diet of the ocellated lizard. This lizard grows to more than 60 centimeters in length and is a solitary creature with routine habits, rarely venturing far from its own patch. The Mediterranean region is the favored habitat for the horseshoe whip snake, which thrives here in complete freedom on a diet of other reptiles. It only lives in very hot climates and moves swiftly and stealthily. The Montpellier snake is the largest of its species, and there have been sightings of these snakes as long as 2 meters. In the south of the peninsula, we find the habitat of one of the jewels in the crown of Iberian wildlife, the chameleon. These are the only examples in Europe of this species. By changing their skin color to camouflage themselves in the undergrowth, they become a difficult target for predators. They move extremely slowly, remaining completely still for long periods, as if they'd been petrified. The chameleon can move its eyes independently of each other, which means it can fix one eye on its prey while using the other to keep watch for its own safety. With sunshine and warmth, reptiles need water to survive. Even the species most adapted to desert conditions need it, if only in the tiniest quantities, supplied by dew and moisture in the atmosphere. Other species, though, seek out freshwater streams, rivers and marshes, which provide an environment that ensures their survival. The striped-necked terrapin is one of the reptiles that absolutely depends on fresh water. These terrapins represent an interim stage between land-based tortoises and the aquatic turtles that live in the deep oceans. Their numbers have been sadly diminished in the waters of the Iberian Peninsula. Their diet features insects and small invertebrates and is complemented with some vegetation. But the discovery of a dead fish provides them with an unexpected feast. This special treat will give them a major energy boost with the absolute minimum exertion. These creatures have membranes forming fins and a smooth shell, enhancing their swimming technique, enabling them to dive for food in the depths of the water. There are some snakes well suited to aquatic life, certain types that live exclusively around water. Not for them a diet of small mammals and rodents or a home in pine or oak forests. They prefer to steer clear of dry ground. The grass snake takes the name collared viper in the Iberian Peninsula, but this is not strictly accurate, as this is, like all freshwater snakes, not venomous. The Mediterranean tortoise is one of the two species of tortoise that live here. It tends to take very little water, drinking only occasionally. However, when the heat gets to it and it feels the need to satisfy its thirst, it heads for a freshwater stream. It does this rarely, but when it does, it submerges its whole head, holding it under for more than a minute and drinking for a sustained period. tortoise was for many years a prolific species in many parts of the Mediterranean. But its numbers have been devastated by the relentless aggression imposed by humans. The tortoise spends the winter hibernating underground, and when it wakes up, its first priority is to find food. They also spend a lot of time lying still, basking in the weak spring sunshine to regain their body heat. They feed on leaves and fruit, with their beak-like mouth replenishing the stores of energy they used up during hibernation. Today, the tortoise population is spread amongst some isolated pockets of France, Italy, and some of the western Mediterranean islands. On the peninsula, there's also a small group living in the Iberian Mountains. Their style of mating is not very romantic. The male chases the female, hits her with his hard shell, nips her with his beak several times, until she eventually gives in to his desires. The male is smaller than the female. The rear end of its shell flattens out, which helps it to maintain balance and enables it to mount its companion for the act of mating. Afterwards, they each go their separate ways. When the time comes for it to lay its eggs, the female, guided by instinct, searches high and low for the most suitable place to build its nest. They'll make the nest on level ground or on an open site facing south. Once they've found the perfect site, it takes a great deal of care and not a little effort to lay 3 to 6 eggs, each one an intense white. The clutch of eggs is a small treasure, as these are the seeds from which a new generation will grow. The mother now has to cover the nest with a fine layer of earth. This is a difficult job, but in spite of its rather awkward movements, it carries it out with great delicacy. Once the eggs have been made secure, the mother must make sure the setting is well enough concealed to avoid discovery by any of its predators. Tortoises have virtually no natural enemies in their adult life. Its eggs, however, are the favorite meal of the wild boar, a predator that hunts for tortoise nests. Its sense of smell equips it to locate the fresh eggs. This is an exquisite meal for the boar, which devours it with gusto. In this case, the efforts made to conceal the nest were sadly thwarted. But it's humans who, sometimes unwittingly, are the main reason for the decline of the tortoise. This female, for instance, has been caught in a bird trap. The ardent male, distracted by his sexual excitement, does not appreciate the gravity of this situation. Fire is the tortoise's great enemy, and perhaps the surest threat to its survival. Its limited ability to move prevents it from escaping danger at the speed of its neighboring animals. In a forest fire, 30 to 70% of the tortoises living in the area can be burned to death. But for the survivors, a devastating sight is laid out before them. As they emerge from their underground hiding places, their landscape has been razed to the ground, reduced to ashes, and they can find not so much as a drop of water, nor anything to eat. Ravens and crows are expert hunters of the young tortoise. These reptiles live under constant threat during the first years of their lives. Not until they're 4 or 5 years old will they have developed a shell strong enough to offer adequate protection. The well-being of the tortoise is also under serious threat from the uncontrolled activities of human beings. In an attempt to alleviate this situation, a number of tortoise breeding centres have been established, like this one at Albera in Girona. The primary function of these centres is to increase awareness of the tortoise's status as a wild animal, like any other, that needs to live in freedom. Their ambition is to shift our perception of the tortoise and eradicate its image as an animal suitable for domestication as a pet. These pens are set up to encourage breeding in captivity. By creating an environment suitable for reproduction, they hope to be able to boost the numbers of turtles living in the wild. In the Balearic Islands, two species of tortoise live together, the Mediterranean spur-thigh or Greek tortoise and Hermann's tortoise. The two species are well adapted and have integrated perfectly into the animal community. They have the status of indigenous species, although strictly speaking they are not, having been introduced to these islands by human beings. There are other centres like this one in Sonreios, where they collect animals that have been donated or confiscated, with the aim of breeding them in captivity and increasing awareness of conservation of the species. The programme of recuperation for the tortoises begins in these centres and culminates with their return to their natural habitat in their place of origin. They're set free from the hands of their keepers and their helpers. In the Ebro Delta, they're releasing a community of Hermann's tortoise, seized from illegal traders. Their progress is monitored by a team of biologists. They make regular visits to record sizes and weights so they can analyze the reptiles' progress in their new habitat. This experiment has proved successful in creating a stable new population with good future prospects that is enjoying an excellent state of health and has already started to reproduce. If we are successful in rehabilitating different species and maintaining balance in the planet's environment, we can feel very proud of having helped these silent and beautiful reptiles to thrive once more from the arid plains to the lush forests of our Iberian Reserve.